Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday, October the 17th, 2021. It is currently 3:15 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the empty sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church located right here in Ovalo, Texas. And wow, what a crazy few weeks it has been right here on the Theology Central Podcast. I know some of you have stuck around. Clearly, some of you decided not to stick around. Maybe they will come back, but it has been a crazy few weeks. We have been talking about a lot of things, and I wanted to just turn on the microphone this afternoon and do just a quick update and kind of let you know where we are and where we are going. Okay, I have been describing, I think over about a week, maybe 2 weeks, that I feel like someone brought a 1,000-piece puzzle here into the sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church and just threw the puzzle pieces all over the place. But the floor here of the sanctuary is just covered in puzzle pieces. And that I've been trying slowly but surely to put the puzzle back together. And when you have a very large puzzle and you're trying to put it back together, it takes a long time to try to do that. I've tried to be very methodical, very systematic, very careful to ensure that we get the puzzle put back together and it all makes some kind of sense. So let me try to explain everything that's been going on. Obviously, you know that someone on YouTube came forward and put forth a theological idea, a theological perspective, a theological system. And that system was that we are saved by faith, plus obeying all of Christ's teachings, plus repenting, and plus walking a holy life. If we do all of that, maybe we will be saved. Now, we can lose our salvation at any moment, at any time, we can lose our salvation. And when we get to the very end, I guess if we have enough works and we've walked in holiness enough and we've repented enough, then maybe we will be saved. That was the theological system. Now, many would have just disregarded it and said, hey, we believe in salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone. I've got other things to do. Thank you for listening, but we're moving on. But I did not do that because I wanted to show respect to the person and try to take their system and systematically work through it. So, in a sense, once they threw their system out there, that really becomes like, then that's a piece of the puzzle, trying to see, okay, how do we respond to that? How do we put that back? How do we put this back together so that we can maintain, demonstrate, prove, and defend the doctrine of salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone? How can we do this? So I've tried to take it seriously and listen to every argument and accusation and everything, and we spent a lot of time working through all of this. We've looked at everything so far. We still got a long ways to go, but that's one of the things we have been working on. You can listen to all of that in the series, People Rejecting the Doctrine of Faith Alone. People Rejecting the Doctrine of Faith Alone. We've done 12 parts so far in that series, and here in a little bit, we'll start part 13. So I think we've done a lot of work there trying to put this puzzle back together to demonstrate that we're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone. So that's one major area that we've been working on, and we're getting closer and closer to finishing that section, putting that back together, and hopefully offering a very detailed, biblical, hermeneutical, exegetical argument and defense for the truth. And I think I've done a decent job with that. Yes, there can always be improvements, but I've done as much as I can. Now, along with that, while that was going on, we have been and still doing a Bible study exercise on 1 John. Now, 1 John is typically seen to be a book either proving that you need works in order to be saved, or that it proves it's a test to demonstrate if you're saved. And how do you know if you're saved? Well, if you have works, which basically becomes, a works-based salvation is basically what it becomes, even though they would try to deny that. Say, no, we're not saying that works save you, but if you don't have works, you're not saved. Therefore, you need works. Therefore, you have to have faith plus works, because if you're not having the works, then you're not saved. We've talked about that. So we've been working on 1 John, and one of the sections of the puzzle that we've been working on is to try to demonstrate that 1 John was not written as a test book to show you if you're saved. It was written as a polemic against Gnosticism, and that really everything in 1 John is an argument against the knowledge of Gnosticism versus the knowledge that comes from Scripture and from God. It's a competition between two systems claiming to have knowledge. One is true, one is false. And that's really what it's trying to do. And all of the arguments there, or the so-called test, is a test against Gnostic beliefs. And I think we've done a very good job in demonstrating that. And I've given you plenty of things to work on. We still got to finish that part of the puzzle. We're going through 13 major passages in 1 John to demonstrate how you can interpret them in light of the Gnostic polemic, a polemic against Gnosticism, and that it not only is it a reasonable, possible interpretation, it actually may make the most sense, and it's far easier to maintain some theological consistency by doing that. So we've been working on that. Now, in the middle of that, because this relates to the people rejecting faith alone salvation, dealing with that whole issue and dealing with 1 John, I've thrown in now a Bible study on 1 Corinthians chapter 3, because I believe 1 Corinthians chapter 3 is so critical to all of these discussions. Because what do we have in 1 Corinthians 3? We have a letter being written to a church, and that church is filled with every kind of problem you can imagine. And in 1 Corinthians 3, the individuals of this church are referred to as carnal multiple times. They're referred to as being basically unable to handle the meat of God's word, and that they are walking as men. They're not walking godly, they're walking like lost people, yet they're referred to as brethren and babes in Christ, demonstrating that Christians can be Christian and yet be living in such an absolute horrific way. And then 1 Corinthians 3 introduces the idea that there will be a judgment of believers and their works, but if their works all burn up, they will still be saved. So I think we have to include that in all of this. So I've given you some assignments to do on that. That is a part of the puzzle as well. So this is what we have going on right now. All the parts of the puzzle to try to put them together. We have the series, People Rejecting the Doctrine of Faith Alone Salvation, where we've done 12 parts. We have the Bible study exercise in 1 John, which we have done 17 parts, okay? Wow, we've done 17 parts in 1 John, okay? And we've just started our Bible study exercise in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, where we've only done one part. So 12 parts in the People Rejecting the Doctrine of Faith Alone, 17 parts in our Bible study exercise of 1 John, one part in our study of 1 Corinthians, and in the middle of all of that, we decided to do, I worked on this in the series, People Rejecting the Doctrine of Faith Alone, but I spent 2+ hours this morning covering faith and works, James chapter 2, verses 14 through 26, which is a major part of the puzzle, and we learned a very important lesson about hermeneutics, about how James 2, 14 through 26, there's verses there that have constantly ripped out of context. They're put into the mouth of James when actually they belong to some objector who's objecting to James. We went through that. I cannot even explain to you how important that study was. So we spent multiple hours on that. And if you put all of that together, we're getting very close for the puzzle to be complete. What do we need to do? We need to finish 1 John, all right? We can wrap that up relatively quick. We'll probably do that Wednesday. We'll probably get really close to wrapping up 1 John on Wednesday, at least the major argument about the book being a polemic against Gnosticism. We will try to get a little work done on 1 Corinthians this afternoon. We can probably wrap up 1 Corinthians within, maybe by the end of this week. I think we can wrap up 1 Corinthians 3. I think we can do that. We wrapped up James 2 this morning, so we finished that. And then here this afternoon, I'm going to work hard to put together and finish the people rejecting the doctrine of faith alone salvation. I'm going to push hard to drive that all the way to its final conclusion. We have the audio to finish reviewing. We're pretty close to doing that. And then all we have left is going through all of the comments left on YouTube and just trying to provide, most of them, there's not much to provide a response to, because we've already answered pretty much. They've only keep making, basically their argument is, you're a heretic and you're going to go to hell. You're a heretic, you're going to go to hell. You're a heretic, you're going to go to hell. You're a heretic, you're going to go to hell, which is really a weird argument to make, because let's say I believe in salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone. Let's say I believe that, but let's say that I am seeking to obey the teachings of Christ. Let's say that I do repent when I sin, and let's say that I'm trying to walk in holiness of life. If I'm trying to do those things and I reach whatever level is required in order to be saved, even though I believe in faith alone, even if I believe that we're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone, however, I have the works and I have the repentance, couldn't I still be saved? Are you telling me that I can be condemned simply by not believing this? So now salvation is, on a roundabout way, since this person continues to tell me that I'm going to hell, really what they're saying is I must believe by faith, I must obey Christ's teaching, I must repent, I must walk in holiness of life, and also I must reject salvation by grace alone, faith alone, because Christ alone, because if I don't reject that, I'm not saved. So really they've added another step for me to be saved, another requirement to be saved, because this person who's accusing me and telling me that I'm going to hell, they don't know me in any way, shape, or form. They don't know how obedient I am or not. They don't know if I'm repenting or not repenting. They don't know if I'm walking a life of holiness or not. They don't have a clue. So I don't know. So for them to say that I'm going to go to hell seems to indicate that they're judging me, and they're judging something that they do not know, which would make them guilty of an unbiblical form of judgment, which actually would make them committing a sin, which they've already demonstrated. They've borne false witness and made false accusations now multiple times. So maybe they need to worry about their salvation and not be worrying about mine. Maybe that's what they should do. But that's a whole different subject as well. So that's where we are. That's where we are. I know it's been a long, drawn-out process, but we're going to try to finish this. So just to remind you, we are still working on people rejecting the doctrine of faith alone salvation. We hope to finish that this afternoon. We're still working on our Bible study exercise of 1 John. We'll probably come close to finishing up a major portion of that on Wednesday. We finished up James 2, 14 through 26 this morning. I think we did a very good job there. We just started 1 Corinthians chapter 3. I think we will make some progress on that this afternoon. And when all of that is done, when it's all said and done, I think that, and it's really fitting, we're going to finish all of this in the month of October, which October 31st is Reformation Day, which we really have spent all of this time to get close to October the 31st to say, once again, we believe the Bible teaches that we're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone, that my justification is based off an imputed righteousness, not an infused righteousness, not a righteousness which I do, but a righteousness that was accomplished by Christ. I am saved because of his passive and active obedience being imputed to my account. I am saved by his finished work, not by the work that I'm trying to accomplish. I think it's kind of fitting that it all worked out this way. I didn't plan it, but providence, I believe in God's providence, that in a providential way, it's all going to come together. Will anyone appreciate what we've done? I don't know. I threw in kind of just a one by itself podcast. Nobody caught on what I was doing at all. Nobody caught it. And sometimes I think I try to be too clever. I threw in a podcast called Does It Matter Why We Forgive on October the 13th. Does it matter why we forgive? And I did not receive one email because I wanted someone to go, whoa, you know what? if we could forgive someone, but we're actually forgiving someone the wrong way with the wrong motives, that would call into question, even when we are forgiving someone, that would call into question the godliness of that forgiveness, because we could actually be doing it the wrong way. I wanted to demonstrate that something as simple as forgiveness, which we are called to forgive people, we're called to turn the other cheek, that in reality, we could be forgiving someone and we could be doing it with a very selfish motive, with us in mind, which then would make us question any good work that we do. Or is it how much corruption is in the good works that you do? If we can demonstrate that sometimes even in the midst of our good works, there is corruption, then that would call into question that our good works could ever save us, because they're all tainted and corrupted with sin. I threw in the idea. Nobody said, oh, wow, that really calls into question. That really throws a challenge to the whole good works concept, but nobody mentioned it. Nobody said a word. I was very disappointed. I'm like, okay, because I wanted to just throw in something to break, kind of break the monotony of all the other things we were doing, but I wanted it to be related, and nobody caught what I was doing. So I probably wasted my time in doing that podcast. I probably wasted my time, which is really sad. So that's what the goal is. That's where we are. So let's go through this again. People rejecting the doctrine of faith alone salvation. We've done 12 parts. We're getting ready to start part 13. Hopefully we can finish it around part 14. We've done 1 John part 17. Okay. We did those really quick. We definitely are going to do more, but probably part 18 will be very instrumental in wrapping up at least an understanding of the purpose of the book. We finished James 2, 14 through 26 this morning, and we really need to start doing a little bit of work on 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and we will do that hopefully this afternoon as well. If we don't get to it this afternoon, I don't know about tomorrow. Maybe Tuesday afternoon. If not Tuesday afternoon, definitely Wednesday. Okay. Oh, yes. I have not forgotten the Imitation of Christ. I have not forgotten the Imitation of Christ. In fact, the book is what happened to the book? I'm looking. Will just asked about the Imitation of Christ. Where is it? I don't know where the book currently is. Okay. Someone cleaned the church this afternoon, which I'm very grateful for, but I don't know where the book is. So, yeah, there's books everywhere. I don't see it, but I still have it. And we need to get back to the inward life that Thomas à Kempis. So once we can finish everything up on all of these other things, then we will go back to the Imitation of Christ. And then I'll just go back to a lot of individual topics and not for a while. Give me a little bit of a break. So I'm trying to bring all of this together. I know it's a lot. I think a lot of people this morning was like, whoa, what was all of that? But I think we went through a very important interpretation of James 2, 14 through 26 that is often ignored by most people, and it was even ignored by me. So I needed to make sure that I really fleshed that out and really try to get that down, because I was just mad at myself for missing it. And so hopefully we can bring all of this together, wrap it up before October 31st, before Reformation Day. We put the puzzle back together, and hopefully when the puzzle is done, it will say salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, because of Christ alone. Right? That for God's glory alone. We can throw in that. Okay. So hopefully that's how the puzzle will read, and then we can set that aside and then move forward. Now, I know the person on YouTube. Look, I don't know how many more times you can message me. I don't know how many more comments you can post. I really don't. I mean, if you want to just spend your life posting comments on my YouTube page, feel free to do that. But at some point, we all have to move on. Sorry we don't agree. I'm sorry you think that I'm going to burn in hell. I'm sorry you think I'm a heretic. I don't even know if you telling me I'm going to hell is even consistent with your own teaching, but that's a whole different subject. So I can't do anything to change that person's point of view, but I think I've done a very good job in covering a lot of very important issues. So that's where we are. That's what we're going to do. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to stop. And then we're going to come back in. We're going to try to figure out where we are in this audio of this sermon that was sent to me that supposedly is the greatest teaching ever on the doctrine of salvation. And we'll finish it. I don't think we have long to go. And once that's done, then I may turn the microphone on one more time and go through all of the comments in chronological order, try to make sure we've answered most of the accusations and craziness. And then we can just say that's done. And then if I can, we'll come back and do a 1 Corinthians 3 Bible study exercise, which is connected to our 1 John exercise. And we still got to figure out all of the issues in the Church of Corinth, all the ways in which the people in the Church of Corinth is described, all the ways that they are described as being a Christian, and all the ways they're being described as being a spiritual mess. And we're going to try to put that all together and hopefully really understand that 1 Corinthians may be absolutely one of the most critical books, because you have a very real-time example of people who are called believers who are also described as an absolute spiritual mess, which would indicate that you can be a believer and be a spiritual mess. It has to indicate that, because if there was ever a time for Paul to fix the problem in the Church of Corinth, if you believe that we are saved by works, Paul could have stopped the letter in a couple, it could have just been like a couple of verses long. Hey, Church of Corinth, you're not saved because your life doesn't reflect that you're saved. You're all lost. Repent and get saved, and all the problems will go away. But he doesn't approach it from that perspective. Why not? It has to be at least considered. So that's kind of where we are. I know it's a lot. I really do. I feel bad at times that it's taken so long, and it's required so much time. And, every hour that I sit here trying to work through this, I sometimes think, man, what am I doing? What am I doing? I got to move forward. I got to move forward. But I just feel like it was the only right way to handle it. It's the only right way to deal with it. And again, connect it to the month of October. What better time to spend working on this very critical doctrine about how we are saved? I can't think of a better time of the year to do so. So I hope it's been beneficial to someone. I really do. I hope our study on First James, not 1 John. Well, hopefully the study in 1 John has been beneficial. But I really hope that taking the 2 hours this morning on James 2, here it is. I just found it. Here is the Imitation of Christ. There it is. I just found it. All right, it's in 2 parts because the book has fallen apart, but here it is. There it is. There's the Imitation of Christ. I knew it had to be somewhere near my microphone. I knew it had to be here. So there it is. But I do hope that James 2, 14 through 26, I hope someone out there benefited from it. And I hope it will challenge you to realize that sometimes we read a passage and we're not paying close enough attention. I mean, I don't know how many times I did not catch on that maybe verses 18 and 19 are not the words of James, it's the words of some objector. And I've completely misread that so many times. And part of the reason I'm using the King James, and that's where I wish they would have used quotations, because I may have caught it, but I should have caught it anyway, even though they don't use quotations. But there you have it. That's where we are. I wanted everyone to kind of have an idea of what we've been working on, where we're going, and we're very, 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 very close to finishing some of this up, and then I can get back to talking about a lot of different issues and any issues that you want me to talk about. And yes, the Imitation of Christ is right here. It's definitely, hopefully, by the end of this week, we can get back and really dedicate a number of programs to it, because we're in a very difficult concept in the Imitation of Christ, this whole inward life situation. It's still as hard to even grasp and figure out exactly how to interpret it and understand it. So we'll have to work on that as well. So that's where we are. That's kind of where we're going. And so without any further ado, what I'm going to do is say thank you for listening to this kind of update. And if you're sticking around, I'll be back in just a couple of minutes and we get started. And let's bring this whole people rejecting the doctrine of faith alone salvation to a conclusion. I have to be honest with you. based off the number of comments and emails from people who do reject the doctrine of faith alone salvation, I can't say that this is a major development within the evangelical world, but I think churches may want to really check to see what people actually believe in regards to salvation, because there's been some studies recently that at least indicate that a lot of Christians really don't have a biblical understanding of the gospel. So maybe, I know it's circumstantial evidence. At best, it's not scientific, but I can't believe how many people have really come forward to defend a system that absolutely rejects salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, by Christ alone, or try to make an argument that really undermines that very system. So something's going on. I know that I cannot say that that I can draw dogmatic conclusions, but something just feels weird by the way some of the comments have come in. Something just feels off. So maybe I'm misreading it, because you don't want to ever exaggerate a problem, but maybe there's something going on in churches, right? And then I can talk about someone from a church in a different state who started talking about the gospel, and their understanding of the gospel is absolutely like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, I don't even know what they're talking about. And they would go to a church that would be considered halfway decent, and I straight up told them, if that's what you believe the gospel is, you need to stop taking the Lord's Supper immediately, because you're taking it in an unworthy manner, because I can't even say you're saved. I don't even know what you're talking about. And I think they were somewhat offended, but I'm like, what in the world? No. So, there's something going on. There's something happening. I know every year they do these studies showing the theological beliefs and trends within Christianity, and they keep coming out going, what is going on? What's going on? Maybe this is just a part of that wider problem. But when you start seeing, sometimes as a podcaster, you make a good decision. Cover this. And then your audience is like, nah, I'm not interested. I understand that that's always a danger. But from a theological podcast, if you feel, no, this is what we need to talk about, even if everyone tunes out, you got to talk about it. And so I have to make those tough decisions. And I hope I've made the right one. But if you'll just bear with me a little bit longer, I'm going to try to get this plane landed. I don't know what metaphor to use. Land the plane. I'm going to swim back to the beach. We're going to arrive at the destination. We're going to put the puzzle back together. Whatever metaphor I should use, I think we're getting very, very, very close. And hopefully when it's all said and done, I hope that you will at least step back and go, man, maybe right now you're like, man, he's wasted a lot of time. It's kind of been irritating. It's not really been that interesting. But hopefully when you step back, you'll go, whoa, okay, all right. I understand James 2 better than I ever have. I understand 1 John better than I ever have. Now I see the importance of 1 Corinthians, and now I see all of the issues related to faith and works and how some people can reject it, and here are some of the problems with their rejection. Hopefully, if that's all said and done, you'll be like, okay, it was worth something. I hope, because considering how much work has gone into all of this, if people don't see the value in it, then I'm going to feel like, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. I'm going to be like meaningless. And then I'll end up like Solomon. So, and that story doesn't end well, does it? Okay. I don't want to end up like Solomon. All right. Well, we'll stop right there. I'll be back on the air shortly. You can email me. You can start emailing me topics you want me to cover soon. newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and let's finish this. Let's see if we can push to the finish line. We're close. Stay with me. I hope it will be beneficial. Thanks for listening.